start their own business, what are like the first 5 things they would need to do? Like, say you have an idea, I want to start up a candle company. And how do I get that business off the ground? What do I need to do to take the first steps to actually put that into action?
So I want to preface the answer to this just with a generalization of everything we're talking about. Entrepreneurship and business owners, all that, it's like art, right? If somebody paints a square on a piece of paper, somebody goes, "Oh my God, it's an amazing square," and then somebody else goes, "That's just a square," right? So being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, in my opinion, is sort of also kind of like in the eye of the beholder, because, and the reason why I say that is this. To answer your question, keeping that concept in mind. So every business is different. There's service businesses, there's product business, there's subscription-based business, there's every kind of style of business, and each one's got a different way that you are going to go about it, right? Some people are going to start a business that there is so much competition, but they just don't care because they're passionate and they love it, and that's what they want to do. Some people are going to do research to find out if that's viable to even start that business. Some people are going to figure out how much money can I actually make if I start this business. So for my opinion on that question, you would first off, obviously, you're going to come up with the brand. Every time I've ever done anything in a business, what's the name of what are we doing, right? So if you're Serenity by Jan candles, right? Like, you're selling candles, right? Then the next thing is you're going to figure out what your name is, and you're going to create sort of like that brand's image. And then I think it's important to figure out a business structure. I mean, most people are going to go LLC routes, but what does that business structure look like? And then I'm going to say this is one of my biggest things. Try to not ever have a partner. It's really like it's tough. I'm gonna just say that's the hardest thing I've ever dealt with in all the stuff I've ever done. Partners, people change. Not even for the bad. Not even for the worse. Like 20 years I've been in business. My partner, he was 18 originally. Now we don't work together anymore, but we're still very close friends. People have kids. People get married. People want to move. Like, it's very important to understand. So when you know that you get your entity, you need an operating agreement, and that is very important because an operating agreement is the Bible of your company. Then after that, the next following steps are, to me, you got to figure out who are you selling to and how do you market to those people, and then pretty much from there, it starts to snowball into like, what's my business now? Like, is this a real thing? Is this going to work? And then, like we were all speaking earlier, sometimes you do it because you love it, not so much about the money. So that goes back to the art of this, right? Are you doing this because this is something you want to make a lot of money on, or are you doing this because this is something that you don't really care how much money you make, you just enjoy making a living doing what you like? So,
Now, Jason, tell us a little bit about your experience, because you've never really had to seek funding, right? But you've been able to launch your business.
Well, I have a lot I could say on this one.
Okay.
But yeah,
Please share.
I've definitely seeked funding, but so sorry. You can always just stop me on these things because literally I could talk about this stuff all day. So let's start from the beginning, right? Some people need funding because they legitimately need funding to make that business work.
Right.
Some people, and I'm guilty of this in the very beginning, and I was so lucky to some of the people I met in the beginning. Some people want funding so that they can live off that while they're kind of getting their business started, right? Well, there was an older guy that I met in the very beginning who I said, would you loan me 50 grand so that I could get things going and this, that, and the other? And he said, if I loaned you 50 grand, you're never going to be successful, because what happens is then you go into a comfort zone, and then I don't need to push hard. I don't need to worry about it because I can pay my bills this month. And so when I started TSM, I had no money at all. Like, I literally just did it all from scratch. I remember I was dry. I got to a point one day where I was like, I'm gonna run out of money, and I got a client that day. It was like $2,000, and at that time I could live off that forever. And I was just like, oh my God, this is awesome. And so you fast forward, so you start there. If you need funding, that's different. But what you have to understand about investors and investing is they're just real simple. If they're savvy, like if you are smart enough in life to acquire money that you can invest with, like if you have $1 million that you made and you're like, I'll spend 200,000, all of a sudden what you're going to spend that $200,000 on becomes real. Like, I want to spend every dime I had when I was younger and I had no money. Now I have pretty good money. I am like the cheapest person ever because now that I have it, now I'm like, well, wait a minute, now I want to lose it. So if you're savvy enough to get yourself to a point where you have $10 million and you're going to invest $1 million with somebody, you're going to want to know, am I going to make my money back and how quickly am I going to make my money back? And that's a huge thing. So people will write these business plans and stuff like that, but it's like, if you can't genuinely make sense to a person on how they're going to get paid back their money and their ROI, it's very tough to secure funding. There are a lot of places you can try crowdfunding. You can go to, there's investor groups. Isabel said, I agree with that. There's a ton of those. Banks are tough because banks are very traditional. That you have to have a great credit score. You have to all this stuff. Family is a good one. Friends, if they have it. The problem with family and friends is like then now you're mixing money with friends and family, and that can get a little dicey if you know, hey, where's my money at? So to me, I always tell people, like, if you have to first be able to prove, because if anyone's going to give you $100,000, they're smart enough to know if they're going to get their $100,000 plus their 20% or whatever it might be back.
Right.
Or they're going to say, okay, I'll give you $100,000, but I want to own 80. You've all seen this on Shark Tank, right? Oh, sure, I'll give you $100,000. I want 80% of your business, or I want a royalty in perpetuity even when I pay you back. And so my thing to you is, if you need it, you have to have it, okay, do it. Just like a partner, right? It's like we talked about before. If you need it, you have to have it, you got to do it. If you can figure out a way to just hustle, that's, and again, not everyone can do what we all have something different. It's different for everybody. I had a startup company with my friend. We were going to do, we created an Alexa skill for the multifamily industry, and we needed money for that. We built it, but we needed money to take it further. And it was just like, the people that are going to give you that money are going to brutally ask you questions that are just, you have to, you know, because the thing is if you have an idea that is actually going to make that money and make them back, you'd have 10 people standing in line. If you had an idea that it could prove to me that I was going to make money tomorrow, I'll give you the money right now. Anybody would, right? And so that's the hardest part about the whole funding, is everyone sees it like it's on Shark Tank, like you walked in. What you aren't seeing on Shark Tank is that those people have reviewed the financials. Those people have renewed the money, like they have seen how many clients they have and how many sales they have. For you to get money when you haven't sold anything or you haven't proved your concept, I'm taking 90% of your company, because then I'm going to run it and I'm going to protect my own money. So when it comes to funding, just it's the jungle. If you have the right idea, people are going to stand in front of you and hand you cash. If you don't, you're going to go in a circle. So that's.
Well, so many of our students have the opportunities now that didn't exist before the internet.
Just one last thing on this too. One advantage you have in the creative space, especially like if you're, let's say you're in music and you're trying to create an album, or you're an independent filmmaker, right? You could get people to invest by being an executive producer. Hey, could you put in $10,000? I'll make you the executive producer. We did that on a documentary. We shot a documentary back in 2014 about 5 wounded vets that lost their sight in war. And one of the biggest things we did was, in order to make that happen, we went out and we got several business owners to put in 5,000, 10,000 title sponsorships. So think about that's as another funding source, sponsorships. Now, if you're making something that's not going to get anyone any kind of marketing or promotion, then that's not a viable option. But you just need to be creative in how you're thinking about it, because again, one of two things is going to happen. Someone's going to give you money because you have an obvious thing that's going to make them money, or they're going to take control of your business. And one just note, sorry, the company that I had was the disinfectant pods. The gentleman that actually created the product brought his friend in, and his friend put in $15,000. Okay, so over time he continued to put money into this business with us. So at the end of it, he actually had maybe $150,000 of his own money into the company. Right? He was able to actually force the other owner who invented the pod out of the company, because the court or the law and legal always recognizes the person who put the money in. Doesn't matter if you made it. If I put in $100,000, I'm the one they recognize, like, you owe me my money back, right? So just remember that, like, you could still lose your idea even if you're the main person or the inventor. if you start taking money from the wrong people.
Similar things happen with Tesla and Elon Musk, right?
Yes,
So
exactly.
Tesla was actually created by a different person, and then he came in and invested, and now he owns the company, which
Yep.
is pretty crazy if you think about it. you
Yeah,
know?
that's the thing is
So-
that when you take a partner on or financial, especially financial, everyone's going to look at that first. So if you do that, it doesn't matter if you invent. I mean, this is literally Mod Clean is the name of our product. It's still out. It's in Sally's and other stuff. I sold my shares a couple years ago, but the guy that I started that company with, who actually showed us the prototypes of the pods, was pushed out of the company by the other gentleman because he had all this money invested. And so when we went back, it was like, well, you have to pay it back. You can't pay it back. So just give me your shares. And he was forced out. And that happens a lot.
Wow, something to consider for sure. I know you've created so many different ventures, Jason. It's like you've had your hands in many, many, many different products. When it comes time to figure out if a market is viable, like if it makes sense to launch that business, what are some of the factors that you take into consideration? And then, Isabel, I would love to hear your input on this as well. I know you have more limited experience with starting companies, but I know that you did a lot of market research when you were writing your business plan. So I would love to hear about that. So go ahead and start us off, Jason.
This one I'll do a short run on. The thing about it is we're always so excited about our idea, right? We all like I created this. It's like, yeah, but if you really look around, it's probably 3 or 4 of them, 10 of them. Right? I mean, the apps were a great example. The app was like a gold rush, right? All of a sudden, everybody wanted to make an app. And I was like, did you look to see if there's already one of those apps out? Because there's probably already an app like that. And 90% of the time, they'd come back and be like, nah, crud, there's already an app like that. Yeah. And so one thing is are you really making something innovative? And even if you are, then how do you tell people about it? And that's some marketing comes into play. So for me, everything that I've ever gotten involved in, and Isabella said this before, and I was going to say, I wrote down my 4 pillars, which I'll say by the end of this, or what my 4 pillars of business are. But one is passion. So at the end of the day, if you believe in yourself, that is the number one thing that you can do. I don't like coming up now. I'm a little bit older and a little bit like experienced and wiser, but I still maintain the mentality of like, no one can tell me that I can't do anything. And I don't mean like the police can't tell me I can't do something. What I mean is like, I believe in myself 1,000,000%, 1,000,000%, right? No way, if I have my mindset on it, can I not accomplish this? And that takes sometimes not eating, not sleeping, working. You have to outwork everybody else, but you have to believe in yourself. So when you're looking at the viability of your product, there's a lot to look at. Does the market need it? Are you solving a problem? These are all the corporate things that people say. Personally, I'm going to say this 2 times before this is over. My motto in this is always this: there ain't nothing to it but to do it. And everyone laughs like that's some joke. I'm not kidding. Ain't nothing to it but to do it. If you believe in yourself and you do it, just go for it. Because if you lose and you fail, it's like you paid to go to Full Sail. You paid for education. A failure is a payment for more knowledge.
I love that. That's so inspiring. How about you, Jason? Because you're doing everything. I don't know how you find time to do anything else.
I just don't sleep anymore. I went to Full Sail, so now I don't sleep for 20 years. I would say the first thing in this answer is make sure, like, learn yourself, right? So, for example, I know from like I'm an early bird. I used to not be, but now I'm old, so now I get up early. Like I feel like each year I get up like 30 minutes early, right? So from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. I know that's one of the things that I'm passionate about, which is also something I do, is graphic design, videos. I do it for the businesses that I work with or I run or whatever. But I know from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. that I can sit at my computer because my brain is able to tell me no one else is up yet, no one's going to call me, no one's going to bother me. I don't feel like the need to look at my phone or my email. And so I've recognized over the years that time is my creative time. And then also in the evening is my creative time. Okay, everyone's off work. They're not bothering me as much now, 6 o'clock to whatever time is this. And then there's that middle time. And my point of what I'm saying is it's like you need to figure that out for yourself, right? So I know once 10 a.m. hits and people are ready to have meetings and Zooms and, I'm got to go somewhere, I got to do whatever. Those are the times where there's no way I can sit at my computer and work on something. And Isabel and I were talking about this earlier because she's also does creative content. And it's, she made a great point earlier by saying if 9 to 5 Jason may not be the best version of Jason, right? Because at that time when you are forced, and Heather's the same, she's an artist, you just feel the vibes and you're ready, like as they say in the studio, right? Like, oh, we got the vibe in here. So you in order to balance it, you have to know. So like I was telling them, I took a 20-mile bike ride yesterday at like 2:00 in the afternoon, because I knew at that point I was like not gonna do anything really good right there business wise. So do it in the morning, get as much done before anyone comes up. So getting to know yourself and getting to know I love exercise, got to try to get in every day. When am I going to do that? And so Isabel said this, and I'm going to echo this: planning. It's all about your planning. So I know that if I am going to have meetings or something in the evening, it's important to me to stay healthy and exercise. So when am I going to fit that in? And then, but if I fit that in, I'm not going to give it up in between 5 and 10 a.m. because I know that's my creative time. So knowing yourself and creating that plan, and then living on a calendar. I live on my Google Calendar. Like, those are the ways that you fit it all in. Same with the weekends. And if you're passionate too, that's the other thing. People are always like, how do you do so much stuff? Because I love all the stuff that I do. That's as easy as that. If you don't love what you're doing in a business or as an entrepreneur, then you will burn out. Mm-hmm. But if it's something where it's like, I'm on the couch and I'm like, I really want to go over and continue working on that After Effects project I was working on because I was really into it. That's when you know you found the right thing.
Mm-hmm. That's great advice. And Jason, you don't have a business degree, but you have been able to really thrive in starting your own business. I think part of that is just your entrepreneurial mindset, the fact that you're always looking for ways to continuously improve yourself and grow businesses. So what tips and resources do you have for anybody that's looking to start up their own company?
So can I read a couple? I don't normally ever write stuff. I like literally freestyle all this stuff just because it's just what I live. But I want to say this about that answer, and then I'd like to read these since this is kind of our last thing. This is some stuff I wrote I thought would be very helpful for people.
Sure.
So the hard answer for that is we're all doing something different, right? So Isabel honestly said she nailed it. People say your network is your net worth, and that's for sure. Like, the people that I've met along the way, I worked in a studio and I met so many people that introduced me to other people. Like, right now I have the, bazillion Grammy Award winner Darkchild, who's been renting my studio out for the last 2 years. He lives there. It's like the full entire time he's there.
Nice.
He's introduced me to Chris Tucker and Fred Hammond, and my business partner in Next Move was indirectly, I met him through a guy that met me because he liked the work that we did for Darkchild. Mm-hmm. So indirectly from that guy, from Rodney Jerkins, I've met like zillions of people. So network, and then she's also right about mentorship. When I got out of here, I had great mentors, and now I'm the mentor, right? And so you keep going that way, and then so other than that, I would say it's hard to answer that question based on, if you're in a certain type of business, there's probably associations, there's probably networking meetings, B&Is, and things like that. But I just want to say these because I think these are really important for people that are watching this. There are 4 things that I think are super important about a business, and I think and they go in an order, right? Number 1 is passion, but I'm also going to say this and come back. Number 2 is ideas. Nice. But when you're passionate about something, then those ideas just flow. So before you get involved in something, you have to love it. Like, to your core, you have to love it. If you love something, you're thinking about it all the time. And when you think about something all the time, the ideas will just come from that. Then once you do that, it's all about the execution. Are you able to do, how are you going to deploy that and execute it? And then the last one is perseverance. 100% perseverance is number 1 in this. There's been a lot of times I wanted to quit. There's been a lot of times where I thought I was going to get sued, or I thought I was going to make the bills. I used to sit and wonder how I was going to pay my Amex. Like, oh my God, my Amex is going to be, and I started realizing, why am I worrying about how I'm going to pay it? I should just be worried about how I'm going to pay it. Mm-hmm. Think about that. And so that brings you to another thing when you come to perseverance. There's also a point in business when you're working where you have to think about cutting your losses versus giving up, right? Everybody's like, oh, don't ever give up. Sometimes you should stop. You know what I mean? Like, if you're losing money a lot, or this isn't working, like, you got to give it the old college try or whatever. But at some point in time, you have to be able to identify, like, this is not going to get better and I need to stop now. And then I actually said these other two already. So within this, but my last one on this will be like, think about failure as a payment, right? Like I said this earlier, and I cannot stress this enough. There are a ton of things that happen to me over time, business failures. When I had my pour spout, I worked with in China and got molds made and got those shipped over here, and that business failed. But I learned about international importing and exporting from that business. When I did the disinfectant pods, I negotiated a contract with Sally's Beauty, which is a huge company. And I sat in there and I did that. And all those experiences and that company didn't work out. I sold my shares, it didn't work out. But there's no person in this planet I'd be afraid to sit in a room with and have a business meeting with. I'm not intimidated by people. And all of those things came from failures, not from successes. It's like being in your comfort zone versus not being in your comfort zone, right? Like that's why I say, like, if you take money to stay in your comfort zone, you're never surviving. You're never in survival mode. You're never in grind mode. And survival mode's where we can do our best work because we have no choice. So I know that wasn't what you asked, but I wanted to make sure I got those things to the.
I love all of the advice, all the things. I love that you said failure is your payment, because I think there's so many people that would like give up.
Yep.
I think anytime somebody fails, it's such a hard thing to take. You know, any failure in life is hard to take.
Yeah.
But it's usually those failures that end up making you try harder, that help you become a better person, that teach you lessons about yourself and about your business, right? And so I feel like failure is often the best thing that could happen. So we have a question for you, Jason. This came from our audience. Where do you feed your passion on different phases of a business? Because, starting something off versus it running for a while, those are various phases. So tell us about where that passion comes from.
That's a freaking great question. That is a really, really good question. I'm like, wow. Whoever asked that, good job. That's wow. It's always easy in the beginning, right? We're always excited, right? Like it's always exciting, and like it kind of piggybacks off what I just said, right? Like when I've come and done some of the pack or some of the students when they've got their projects or whatever, and they showed like some of these financials and some of these plans, and they're like wildly like, I'm gonna be sick. We're gonna make $1 billion in the first year and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. So maybe not, but don't feel bad if you don't. I think the thing of it is like, that question is a question for where you are in your journey as an entrepreneur, right? And what I mean by that is like the way I would think about something when I was 25 compared to how I think at 46, very much different, right? Like back then I had a lot more energy. I mean, like when I started my studio, I would go downtown Orlando with a backpack of flyers and I'd hand them out to everybody and I'd tell them about the studio. There's no way I'm doing that now, right? But I don't need to do that now because I've got to a point where I'm experienced and I have people that do that part of it. And then I am the visionary. So when you look at how do you deal with those different phases of business, it's going to depend, again, all of this is dependent on what it is. If it's something that I love, then it never matters. So you just always want to keep going, right? But I think the best advice I could give you is to always try to innovate. Right, because the thing is, if it becomes stagnant, or if you've just been doing the same thing all the time, and you're just kind of like, this is the same thing, then you're going to get bored with it, and in that phase, you're going to start being like, I don't know if I really want to do this, and you start looking for something else. So if you're always trying to figure out the new way or the best way to continue to do something that is making that business exciting and fun, and you love it, that's how you're going to keep it going on and forever. And again, I'm different because I like, I mean, you could tell me, hey, I'm going to make mugs, and my mind is immediately going to be like, well, we're going to get the mugs from here. We're going to do this. That's just the way that I think about stuff. But some people are going to focus on one individual thing. That's where I would always be looking at the innovations. Always, how am I making this better? How am I doing something? How am I making new clients that aren't in my client like market pool right now? Like, how am I pulling people in that, like, women 40 to 60 when my market is men 20 to 30? Like, how do I do that? That's exciting and interesting. And that's how I keep it interesting.